Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon. I'll make sure things are set up here. I think my mic is on. It's working. Perfect. And you can see me. Awesome. Well, hi again. How's it going? Good to see you guys. Good to see you, Daniel. Good to see you, Jugdev. Jugdev, what's your first name? Hula. Okay, Hula. Nice to see you. So, how are you doing today? Yogi. Perfect. All right, Yogi. Well, it's early here. I had a busy morning at work today so far. It's super awesome to be hanging out with you guys again to get some things done here and keep building out the pipeline that we started on Saturday, I think, or Saturday, yeah, last week. So that's been awesome. Have you had a chance to kind of look at yourself or done anything else since then? Or you just been working on other things? So what's happened since last time, and we can have kind of a little recap here. Just a 5-minute recap to see on what we've done so far, just to make sure we're well set up for the future, right? So on Saturday, what we started doing was building out this MLOps pipeline from scratch, and we had this solution here that was pretty simple, contained 2 projects, right? One of them was a trainer project, and one of them was the API project. And what we wanted to do was, in GitHub Actions, we wanted to build this one. And then we wanted to train it by running the .NET run. And then after that, we wanted to move the model over to the API folder in such a way that we could run the Docker file. So we can create a container and then push it to a Docker hub. And we did that, but we had some issues in the end there, because what we were struggling with was the copying of the file. So we had trained the model here, see like train model. When we wanted to build and push the image, we actually couldn't find the correct model file that we needed for the Docker image. So when we ran the Docker image, it failed and I couldn't find it. So I took the liberty to look at that a couple of nights ago, just so we didn't get stuck on that when we started here. And I figured out a solution. I kind of want to share it with you so you all kind of see what's going on here. So what we did here was that we ran a Ubuntu agent, we restored it, .NET Restore, so the trainer project. We ran .NET Build to build it, and finally we ran .NET Run to train it. So we ran the console application and got the model out, which was awesome. And then we went and used this upload artifact GitHub action to upload a zip file to like an artifact folder in between these steps here. So we have one job here and we have one job here. And we wanted to use that model here that we created in the second job, and we were struggling to find it anywhere. We couldn't really see the directory structure, and it was frustrating. So what I did actually was I found a really cool git command. Well, it's super easy. It's like this bash script to just display directory structure in like where you are. So basically what you were doing was say I want a step here, and I want to execute lsr in this directory. And what it was doing was it was actually giving me things. So Yogi, today what we're going to work on today is that we are going to do a couple of things. We're going to start off by making sure that we can not only publish it to registry, but also deploy it. So we'll add a step here to deploy it to Azure Container Instance to make sure we have the full pipeline. And once we have that, we have a skeleton here of things. But then we need to add a meat. So what are some meaty things that you can think of that you would like to get added? Any thoughts? If you had this in production, would this be sufficient, I guess? It would be awesome, of course, that you can get like train it, put it in the API, put it in Docker folder, container, build it, push it, and deploy it. I mean, that's pretty good, right? But if you had a real-time production scenario, would you be okay with just doing that? Like, what are we missing here that we are so used to having in the software development world? Tests. We are missing tests, first of all, and we're also missing traceability and auditability. Yeah, perfect. Exactly, John. Good to see you. Good morning. So we talked about that last time, that we need tests, and I kind of pointed you to Martin Fowler's article here about continuous delivery for machine learning, because I think he lays it out perfectly. So what I want to do today is add some meat to this. I want us to look at the test pyramid here and think about what kind of tests do we need for a model. Like, we're so used to having that thing for a normal software development thing, right? But what about a machine learning model? Well, one thing I want to do is add data validation tests. So I want us to create a test project where we can check that the cardinality of our binary columns is binary and not ternary or anything else. And I also want to add some simple tests here for the model itself to make sure that we at least have a minimum baseline for the F1 score and the accuracy and those kind of things. So as part of training our model, we want to make sure we have those tests executed as well, so we at least have a baseline that we can relate to. So that's one thing I want to do. And then what I want to do after that, after we get those things done, is start discussing a big gap we have here. And the gap is that, how do you track the performance of this model? Let's say we build this machine learning model and we get 95% accuracy, and we say, okay, that looks good. Our test, at least we want a minimum of 90% in our test. We passed that. But what if this model that we just built is worse performance than the one we built before? Do we still want it to go to production or to test? Probably not, right? So we would need some kind of mechanism here to register models somewhere that we have built, compare them with something that we already have in test or in production, and say, hey, this model is actually better or this is worse. That's a kind of funny concept, right? Because in software development, we're so used to saying, hey, unit test pass, integration test pass, everything looks good, green. What's wrong here? Like, nothing. Let's just put it in production because we have a new feature and we can expect it to be better. But with machine learning like this, it doesn't really work, right? Because it needs to be better than something else. It just doesn't need to be okay. Does that make sense to y'all? If not, bark and let me know, and I'm happy to pivot. Alright. So what we want to start with at least is to make sure we deploy it to Azure. Let's make sure we build this thing out all the way. So we already have the step here to register it. So we registered it in my Docker hub, more or less. But I need to have a step as well to push it to Azure, to the Azure container instance. In production, you would probably use like a Kubernetes cluster of some sort. For our purposes here, we're just going to try a container instance instead, just to make sure it works. So what I've done here is I have a container instance up and running here, and it currently has a container from that hub. But in basic sense, it's just an empty container instance. So what I wanted to see here is that when we run this job, I wanted to actually pull a new image from the Docker hub that we have just built and push it here. Okay, that's what I want to achieve here. So if you want to do that, we want to start by kind of building this out, right? So what do you think we should do first here? Create a new job, right? A separate job for this. Like deploy image, I guess. And I think we also need to have a needs statement, right? To make sure that it doesn't run before anything else. So just as you see here in line 34, we said that the build push image can only run after trained model has been run, because they are kind of sequential. We can't create a Docker image before we have a machine learning model to embed into the image, right? And the same thing, we can't really push an image or like deploy it to container instance before we have created it. So it probably needs train model, and I don't think we need to add, train model, but we'll add both of them here. See how that goes. Cool. And we'll go ahead and do a Ubuntu machine as well, right? Let's kind of keep it similar to what we have before here. Has anyone on the stream today used GitHub Actions to deploy an MLOps model to production? Or like in general, like how do you, I'm really curious here, and something I want to talk to you about is like how do you register this in a model repository? How do you keep track of which models you have and what the performance is? Add steps here. Please chime in if you have some experience with that. All right, so we'll call this. We need a step here, right? So first we need to do here is we need to log into Azure, so we have those credentials set up, and then we need to be able to push that image to the container instance. And I think there's a step for that. To Azure. Actually, let's look at that. I think it's called, let's see, Azure login at v1 GitHub Actions. I don't know why I'm googling this all the time. All you can do is actually go here and just search for it, and you'll find it. All right. So we need to log in here. This is probably, I think we only need this here. All right. So Azure login, uses, and we have to kind of tab that in there so it looks good, and then with. And I didn't paste that in there, but we need to provide credentials here. Actually, this can go here. So credentials is a funny thing here. I didn't want us to get stuck on this specific part today, so I actually went ahead and did that last night. But in general, what you need to do here, and I'll show you exactly how this is done here, is that when we authenticate to Azure, we would need to create a JSON payload for a specific instance. So let's say deploy to Azure container. What's happening here is that if we want to deploy to an Azure container, we need to log into Azure and we need to pull it. And when we log into Azure, we need to be able to create this service principal that has the right to be a contributor to this Azure container instance. And you can execute this kind of bash command in Azure to do that. So what I did yesterday in Azure was just executing this one. And the way you do that is you start Cloud Shell. And you go ahead and run this, and the thing you need to change here is the group ID here. So scope here, group ID, it's pretty simple to find. It's going to be under your properties here, and you'll find it as resource ID. So if you do that and copy that in here and run that command in the Cloud Shell like this, super simple, no need to install anything on your computer. What you will get then is this JSON payload here. And this JSON payload is going to have your secrets and everything that needs to have to access this specific resource. So you're not necessarily authenticating yourself against Azure in general, just like an Azure like specific thing, which is what we want, right? Because we want to just allow this specific thing here. So what I did is I already did that, and I kind of put that into the payload in my secrets. So and we can go in there actually, it's kind of fun. When you manage secrets here, in GitHub, what you do is you have secrets under your repo right here. If you click on that, you have your secrets lined up like this. So you see that I have already, like in our last stream, I added this Docker password, Docker username, resource group, and I added Azure credentials today or yesterday to be able to authenticate against Azure. And with this environment name here, all I need to do is then just put secrets dot and then the name of the variable here, and I can use it in my GitHub Actions. So it's really clean and nice. I like it a lot actually, and I really like the secrets part of GitHub Actions. I mean, it's super fun, and the more I work with this, the more I just enjoy GitHub Actions, honestly. Has anyone had experience with GitHub Actions before, and anything to say about it? Like it? Doesn't like it? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Luis. I wouldn't say I didn't like Azure DevOps, but I wasn't like a super fan. I was like, okay, this is nice, but it's a little bit tricky to find things. I think I really like it. It's like it's right here, and I like to have my on my right side here. I have my marketplace. I'll find things, and you can create your own open source like actions here and there, and people can like contribute. Like this one, obviously, Mr. Smithers excellent here, for example, is obviously not a Microsoft action. And I like that you can just kind of pick and choose here for whatever you need for your things. And when I've been struggling with this, it's been pretty good support for it as well. Morning, Dan. Yeah. I think we'll see GitHub Actions becoming more and more popular, honestly. I'm probably taking a lot up the market share of like Circle CI and Team City, those things. Cool. Alright, so with this, I think we are going to be able to authenticate into Azure. So now we want to create that final step, which pulls the image and puts it in the container instance. So we will call this deploy to Azure container instance, maybe, right? And what we can use here is going to be, I think we actually had it here already. It's this one right here. So you see we can use this one here. So in the example we have on the awesome docs here, we see that they go ahead and authenticate Azure right here. They have a separate step for building and pushing the image to Azure registry, and for us we already have that done because we are doing in Docker Hub instead. But we do need something like this. So to make life easy for us, let's copy this over. Alright, and intention here is important. So that should be good, and we'll kind of walk through these settings here and see that they make sense to us. So the first one here that we want to do is resource group here, and that's something I also already added in the secrets here. It's not super secret, but it's a resource group, so that's good. This here I think is needs to be changed, and this doesn't work actually with the way we're doing the Docker image here with this specific action here. I think if you used Azure Container Registry instead and that action, it would have worked much better. So what we need to do here instead is change this to it makes sense. So the DNS label here, if you look at that, what is the DNS label? DNS label, if you go on properties, so this is my container instance, right? If you go on properties here, you actually can define it here. So we have a DNS label name right here, and I've called it review predictor container. And this is important because if you create a container instance from scratch, you don't need to specify this. This can be left blank. And if you leave it blank, it won't work with GitHub Actions. So just remember, if you create a container instance in Azure, just make sure you set that as well. Something else that's also important is the restart policy. By default in Azure, the restart policy is going to be on failure, but the GitHub Actions default versions, when you pull a container instance, is going to be always. So to make sure you don't need to override values, I would all set it to always for now. Of course that varies on what you want in your production case, but there's a tip here. So what I've done is that I put that secret into secret, and I call it container URL. So what we need to do here is just copy this over. So we have that set. And then we need to look at the image name here. And the image name is the same one as here. So you want to make sure that we pull that from the image. I'm not going to put that as secret because it's not a secret. And then we need to add a tag here as well to latest, so we make sure we pull the right one. And what I did as well here is I add a tag here. So if you remember before, when we pulled or pushed things into a registry, we added this like dev tag here. So dev36 whatever, it's like an ID. And that's like the default behavior if you don't define it, a tag. property right here. So before on Saturday we had this like not existing, and they just selected one. So I added it so we can make sure we can reference it easily here. So that looks good. So instead of using the specific secret like here, like in an example, we are going to against Docker Hub, right? So we're not going to go against Azure Container Registry. So we can just change this to the same as we have up here on line 52. So the registry we want to go into is going to be Docker IO. It's the same as this login server, I think. That should be good. And the credentials is already stored in secrets. So we should be good here. Copy these over. We should be good here. Alright, and then what I want to do as well is I want to copy the name here. I think this is the name, because the name needs to be matching here. I'm not sure if this is mandatory or not, but we're putting it here. And I'm pretty sure I put this close to B, which is East US. Alright, so in theory, this should work, right? We should be able to run this, and that should be able to work. So what should happen here is that we should be able to train a model, and once that's trained, an image should be created with a Docker file. That image should then be able to be pushed to the container instance, and that should be live. So without further ado, let's have a look at this. So commit that, and we'll look and wait for this one to finish here. Awesome. Lots of talking here, first few minutes. Sorry about that. I want to make sure we get off to a good start here today. So if you didn't have a chance yesterday, by the way, you should definitely tune into to Louis' stream. Louis started streaming yesterday, I think on Mondays and Wednesdays, and talking about, I think, is it data tools, Louis, in .NET? And some F#, I think, as well. Awesome, yeah, I liked it yesterday. I think it's at 10 AM or something, so definitely check out Louis' channel. That's something I will definitely do as well. Yeah, I saw. It's pretty cool. And I know from rumors that Dan is waiting for his big Amazon order to start streaming as well. And that's exciting. I think it's so, I remember like Saturday after doing the stream with y'all, and my head was hurting in a good way, because we pushed ourselves so much to learn new things here, like GitHub Actions, and we had some issues we ran into, and we tried to solve them, and we solved them afterwards. But I learned so much about like how to do it in Docker, how to use GitHub Actions from that session, and I was really, really inspired after that session. And I realized that like doing something that you almost know, but not everything, and doing with it like a team with you all is like so is super useful for like a learning experience and pushing yourself a bit outside of your boundaries. So as much as it can be painful, it's useful. All right. So we know that this one should work. Now it's pushing it to registry. So this is a Docker container. No, I don't think anyone here is on the live coders team. I'd love to be, but not yet. But they do have a live coders conference though coming up, I think in June, and the CFP is closing, I think on the May 15 on Friday. So if you got a chance, just submit to it. I applied, but I wasn't a regular streamer. So what they want is someone that was streaming regularly, and I think has met the affiliate status, which you need like some measurements to meet. So I'm definitely going to reapply a bit later this year, I think, once I've done this a bit longer, I think. But I think that would be awesome. Fingers crossed, John. We don't know. By the way, I don't know if you saw it on Twitter, but I created my own streaming lamps here. I wanted to get some better lamps for streaming, and my wife, she didn't like that I want to go buy something on Amazon. Neither did I, because they're so expensive. So we reused some really old lamps that we got from the family that are ugly as... really ugly. And we put like a tinfoil base on the back to reflect the light, and then I put like party tablecloth on top to kind of make the light softer. And I'm pretty impressed. I'm not a handy person, as you know, but it's working pretty well. Alright, let's see. Waiting for it to start here. See if we get this going. Right, I want to go back here, see if we have something fun. So far it's, you know, pretty what expected here, right? Nothing has happened. Our activity log should say nothing, right? So because nothing has happened. And it seems like we're waiting for an agent. Yeah, Daniel, it's awesome. Has anyone found a good C# reference to Plotly, like the F# library? Like it's I'm sure you get a lot of use of it, Daniel, for your COVID sessions. I would love to have the C# reference. Oh, nice, John. Let me know. Come on. Make sure nothing's wrong here. For image, we got that, we got that. Oh, I think we have an issue here actually. I see an issue. Or actually, what's it called? I'm checking a thing while this is running. Okay, yeah. You see this here? We have a spelling mistake here. It should be creds. And yeah, that should be good. And I'll put it back to something I know works. So creds here looks good. I'll start it over. I'm not sure if it was hanging on that or not, but I want to make sure we at least don't wait for that to finish, because it probably won't succeed. Yeah, I think the issue with Jupyter, right, is that it's just very difficult to work with in Jupyter. Like, I missed the IntelliSense part. Exactly, yeah. I heard somewhere, Luis, maybe you know this better, but I heard somewhere that they're working on IntelliSense support for Jupyter Notebooks for .NET. So that should be somewhere in the future, I think. I may be wrong there. Wow, I'm really out of luck here. Let's stop this one. Alright, this is queued up. So we can, I think, while we wait for this to start, I wanted to kind of talk on a side topic here, which I think is super interesting, and I'm enlisting your help here. So think about, you know, if you look at old action here, and if you look at what's happening here, if you look at the train model, right? When we train the model here, we kind of print out the output, like accuracy and F1 score, and we know that those are good measurements for our classifier model, but we also want to make sure that we kind of keep track of these. So how would we keep track of these in production, or like in a test scenario? Like, how would we know that this specific commit with the specific data that we train it on would output an accuracy of 94% or 95%? And where do we keep track of that later? So once it's in production, we can go back and look at what data we use, what code we use, those kind of things. Or just as simple as saying, hey, the current one in test, the accuracy is more like it's worse here. So we probably shouldn't build an image here because there's just no need to test it, right? So how do we do that? If you look at like something like Azure Machine Learning, there are some really cool built-in things for that. Yeah, logging it is a good way, Daniel, like logging it, but it's not going to be like future-proof in production. So that's kind of where we really go into like the MLOps part of things here. And I don't really have Azure ML open, but what we're going to look at, what I want to show you is something else called ML Flow. So ML Flow is an open source kind of management platform for machine learning models. And what it does allow you to do is it allows you to register your model into a model repository with different versions. So you'll have like a version 1, and then you push a new one, version 2, and with each version you also can associate metadata like accuracy and those kind of things, right? So we always have that traceability to like, oh, this is the model, this was the accuracy, this was the metrics, oh, and looking all the way back to the git commit and see, okay, this was the code to train it. And then also we could kind of commit some kind of, which is trickier, but some kind of data snapshot. So the same kind of philosophy exists in Azure machine learning, where you can have that kind of world. But the issue here is that this only works in Python. Like MLflow has a MLflow REST API. MLflow has a REST API as well. So if we look at the things here, like what we can do here is like, what we usually do is create an experiment, and then what happens is we create a run. So a run, for example, could be like one training session. Like, okay, we're going to train this model. That's a run. And what we could do is create a call to create a run. And then for that run, we can also log metrics, wherever that is. Log parameters. So we could start logging like key value pairs. Say like key is F1 score and the value is 91, and other log metric here is accuracy and so forth. So we could create a run, and we could start creating those kind of things for it. But the limitation here is that those like model registration, they only work with Python models or R models or something like that. It doesn't work with C# models, and it assumes that you're going to deploy it to a web API, which is not always the case for us. And to kind of mimic and look at this more in detail, so MLflow is part of Databricks. So if you instantiate a Databricks service in Azure, you kind of get this built in. So I was looking at this like a couple of nights ago and how we can do it, and I'm still struggling to find a good use case here. Because if you look at Databricks here, go to our go to our space. I created this review predictor experiment. So the idea here is what I want to achieve is for each run that we do in our YAML files here, we get a corresponding row here, and each of those rows should be like, you know, this is if you go into one of these rows, that should kind of contain the metrics, F1 score, and accuracy and those forth, and also kind of tags to the git commits and so forth. Cool, okay, that's nice, John. So that's all good. We can definitely we can log the data, and Luis actually have a really good blog post on this where you can like log all the metrics for a run in here, but there's no way to register the model. So if you look at models here, what we want to do is we want to say, okay, this is the run. Let's compare this run with like a previous run. If the run is if the run happens to be better than the previous run, let's register this model here, and let's then be able to promote it to staging and production, deploy it to Kubernetes cluster or something else. But you can only register models here of type like scikit-learn, TensorFlow, Keras, H2O, PyTorch. You can't do it as a C# model because it expects you to have like a CUDA file and a condo file thing for dependencies, which is not working. So we are stuck. We're stuck, right? We can't really do anything about this. So why did I talk about all these things for you guys? Well, the issue is that we are going to have an issue here in our pipeline, and we have to think about solving that in some way. We can probably do like a half good way here. Yes, Daniel, that is the million dollar question. Does support Onyx? It does. Of course it does. So yes, we can output the model to an Onyx model, and then we can serve it as an Onyx model and register it there. That's all gonna go work. Exactly, but then we end up in the case where like, okay, we have to do Python because we have to serve it in Python. You can't necessarily integrate it into like, if you, let's say you want to log that one, how do you fetch that model to integrate it into a web API or a desktop app? So it's like, yes, it's like a workaround for sure, but it's not necessarily the workaround that it's long term, because if you think about like how this works, the way it always works for them more or less is they have this kind of model structure with the conda files and the inputs in Python, and they expect it always to either deploy as like a Flask API into Docker container of some sort. For us, that's not the case. We want to be able to deploy it as a desktop app, maybe a mobile phone app, maybe we want to deploy it as a web API without Docker, maybe to a Docker container. So we have a lot more use cases than like a regular model would have, I think. I'm rambling here. So what I'm trying to say here is that I want to build MLflow for C# ML.NET, and I want to build it with you all. I think we can do this together, and if you're interested, this is something we can do on a stream together, or I'll just kind of open up a project and we can contribute as much as we can. But I would like to kind of start mimicking this API here, because what we can do is we can in theory create like a Blazor API, web app, which just has these kind of endpoints to it and runs in a container with a MongoDB or something else in the background, and stores the models in like a blob storage in Azure. So when we want to register a model from our GitHub Actions, we just call this API that we created, and it will put the model in a blob container in Azure, and it would register the metadata in like a MongoDB or MySQL or SQL Server. Alright then, see you later. So that's something we can consider doing, I think, in a future stream, and I would love to hear your input on this. Is this something you would find interesting or not? But I think it's definitely a big gap in the way we do this right now. Alright, but for now, let's look at, before we go back into the discussion, I guess, let's look at if we managed to deploy it. So it looks like we were able to do it. Awesome, John. Please help. It looks like it went to the Azure container instance here. So let's look at Azure and see if this actually is true. Please work. Yeah, so it looks like we did something here. We have a request, and it did something from the way we want to do, I think. So I think from what I can tell so far that we were able to deploy it appropriately. Cool. So Ibe, what specific tasks right now do you have? Is it like registering models, or is it deploying models? It'd be awesome to hear. Like, do you have an MLNet model in production and you want to register the metadata about it, or is it the deployment scenario that's a difficult thing? I think a lot of people would find it useful to be able to do that at least, and we probably could even create like a GitHub action as well here, but I assume we probably want to call it from our training file instead. But yeah. So that's awesome though. We have a pipeline now, the skeleton, so we can actually start doing something useful here. And as we talked about before we jump into like the MLflow kind of complexities and figuring out how you want to push or not push a container image, we should add some tests here. So let's go back and start doing that here. And we have this triangle, and we, in theory, what we could do is have like 3 kind of test projects. One thing we could do is start adding data tests, and then we can add model tests here as well. So let's see if we can do that. Okay, so you're building an Android app. Okay, cool. Definitely, if you have any questions on that, or if we can help with that in some way, feel free to send me a message on Twitter or whatever else medium works. I think you probably need some more context to be able to solve it. But that sounds very interesting to me. So what's the actual issue you're running into? And while wait for your answer. I'll start building out the test project here for us. Sounds good, Ibe. Alright, so what we want to do here is we want to create a data project. So we have 2 projects already, right? One for the API and one for training the model. So to make sure that we have our data correct, and I will open up the data file and show you why this is important. 1 second here, hold on. Review predictor. Okay. And if you find the stream useful today, definitely hit that follow button, and you will make sure to be notified when I'm online next time, which would be awesome. So we'll see here that we have the data file right here, right? So if we look at the data file, in a real world scenario, right, the data is going to change over time. Awesome, thank you for that follow. Thank you, Ibe. If you think of a real case scenario, I think the data is going to change over time. You want to retrain on new data, and it will be maybe streaming data, maybe something else. So we can't assume that the data is going to be stagnant, or we can't assume that the data is going to be the same, or the cardinality. In our case here, it's super simple, but what could happen is that someone decides that it could be like, instead of being positive and negative reviews, we can think about like maybe it's positive and neutral and negative. So it'd be like -1, 0, and 1. And if that happens, it would throw up the whole thing, because we are assuming it's a binary classification, not a multi-class classification. So we need to have some kind of data validation going in that this is going to be as expected, right? And that has to do with Martin Fowler's first pillar here on continuous delivery for machine learning, which is the data validation pipeline here. So I haven't done this before, so it's going to be new for me as well. But I think what we want to do is create a test project for this, and let's maybe create an N unit one, because I use more N units, and let's call this review predictor data tests, and they'll be in the same folder. All good, awesome stuff. And we'll remove that test and we'll add a new one here. So let's say we call a test here, and let's say data validation tests. Super simple. Alright. We'll call this a test fixture. Hopefully we have NUnit installed. Yep. And we'll go ahead and say so the test we want to do here is given valid data should return true, for example. And we'll call it a test. So what are we going to do here? I usually like to do range act assert here, just to we get some structure. So let's think about this a bit here. What we want to do here is we want to look at this file. So you want to load that into memory, and we want to look at the cardinality of the sentiment column, for example. So we can at least install a CSV helper here, because that's going to be useful, I think. Just load it. So let's do install package CSV helper. I think it's an awesome package for doing this. And then the question here is, do we want to have our own copy of the data, or do we want to do the one that trainer uses? And I think what we want to do is do the one that trainer uses. So we'll copy it over here, but I won't commit that to Git, so that should be good. Yes, standardless. We are using C#.NET here. .NET Core. Awesome stuff. And we're doing machine learning in that, so thank you for the follow, standardless. Appreciate the office gif here. That makes me happy. Alright, so we're gonna copy it over for now, but let's not commit the data, because we want to make sure that in GitHub Actions, so let's run through that. In GitHub Actions here, we want to, the same way we copied over like the model file here, between training the model to build in Docker image, we also want to copy over the data file maybe to the data tests to make sure that we use the same data file for tests as we do for training the model. And in an ideal world here, and I think you already kind of figured out that this is not going to work if we have like gigabytes of data. But like in an ideal world, and I think in a real case scenario, we would probably mount a file share instead, and the data would live on a file share. So we would point to the same file share for both the data validation tests as well as for the training, instead of relying on this data being checked in like this in GitHub. And that's something we should definitely improve on, but let's do that once we get things working. Sounds good? Alright. So it was a while since I used CSV helper here, so I may need to Google things here. But I think it's like new CSV helper. We'll try that. It should be pretty simple to use if I remember correctly, but do we have some easy examples? Get started. Perfect. Okay, copy paste this. Perfect. We'll get that. 3 meter. So I'm not sure if this is going to be working with relative paths, but let's try relative paths first, and if it doesn't work, then we'll embed it or something. Alright. CC reader. Why is it not working? I thought it was installed here. Huh. It seems like, oh, it's probably installing it here. I see. Yep, okay, it was installing the wrong package because that was the wrong solution. Alright, that's fine. I'll go ahead and use it here instead. Okay. So a lot of these things we're doing right now here are like, I think missed. Probably not in the real case scenarios, but like in examples we see online. Like it's very, like sometimes it's very simplified, like we just build an image, we train a model and push it and then we're done, right? And we kind of miss that like professionalism that we need as well for production scenarios, like unit tests, data tests, those kind of things. There's always more behind the surface than we see here. Alright. So let's create we want to do here get records, and we can just copy over the model here instead. I'm not going to bother. Actually, we can just probably just add a reference to a trainer here. Reference dependencies. Go ahead and add a product dependency here, because what I want to do here is I want to use the same schema as we're using in real world. Okay, so that should give us something, right? If the thing is in the right place. So honestly, this should be under act because we're doing that. So we got the records right here, and just do this. What we want to do here is create a variable. Let's do that. Sentiment cardinality. Okay. Let's give it a value of 0 to start with. And there should be a way to do this here. Sentiment cardinality, records. Okay, let's see. Do we do to list to get that, or if we do to list, do we get the list of those? Okay, that's perfect. And then we want to do max maybe. Sentiment. Would that give me what I want? No, that would not give me what I want. Let's do a group by, I think. Sentiment. And that should give me that should probably give me that, right? So what we're doing here is that we're doing to list, which means that we get all of the records in the file into memory. We're doing a group by to see how many different groups we have, and we count them. And we expect this value here to be 2, right? So we should only have 0 and 1 as possible values if it works. And let's see. And what we want to do here is we can use something called fluid assertions. I'm not sure how many use that package, but I love it. So I'm going to install that. Manage new packages. Awesome stuff. So what are you drinking this morning or afternoon? Coffee, tea? Anything fun? I'm a big coffee drinker, so that's what I do. Install. Coffee always. John, do you have a preference? Do you like? Do you have like a specific kind of coffee? Awesome. All right. So what we can do now. Yeah. Pizza. Oh yeah, actually, that's exactly. We used to drink that as well. We have like a coffee grinder, and we like the whole beans from Pete's, but now we actually have something else instead. But that's a pretty good one. All right. So with fluid assertions, what you can do is to like should instead, and it's just much prettier. So instead of doing assert equal, we can do that instead. So that should give us the cardinality, right? And we expect it to be either 0 or 1, so it should be 2 groups. So if you run this now, there is a chance that it won't work, because there's a chance that this path here is not going to be productive. But good machine learning machine. But let's build this and run this test and figure out if the path is wrong or not. And that should be our next issue to solve. Okay, that runs. So we should be able to have tests here, hopefully. It's exploring the test. Perfect, we found a test. And we have a test right here. And see, you can run this, and hopefully it likes relatives paths, but I don't think so. And we probably need to copy the output. No members are mapped. Oh, okay. So we probably need to. That doesn't have any member mappings, okay? I think that should work. But let me do this real quick. Let's debug this test, because copy always good. That's why it probably worked. Something is not working, I think. Debug. So only a couple of weeks left now to the virtual MLOps conference as well. The CFP closes on Friday, and we'll be announcing speakers, I think, this weekend if everything works out. There's some fantastic submissions in there. I'm really excited. Thank you for everyone who's submitted so far. If you've not submitted, please do. Alright, so I think it finds it, because I don't think we would get this far otherwise. So it seems like we have something else going on here. Good, Daniel. I look forward to that submission. You had a great first submission, but I definitely appreciate if you want to do something more specific. That's awesome. We definitely want specific ones, because that's going to be, I guess not everyone can make can do an introductory talk on MLOps, because there's too many. So specific ones is fantastic. Okay. No members are mapped for the type here. So do we need to map any members here? Oh, not at all, Daniel. It's still time to do it. So I'm not sure if we need to do this, but let's add these here, because it seems like we have an issue with the maps here. And what I'll do is just copy this over instead, and we'll have our own here for the schema. Add a little folder. We'll call this models, and we'll do index instead, which I think is CSV helpers attributes. Okay, and we'll put this into the data tests model instead, and we'll go ahead and change this up a bit. So we don't want to go to here, but we'll go and use this one instead. Nice. Alright, so let's run that again and see if that works. Perfect. Let's see if that helps. Well, this is not very fun. No members of map per type. Is it because we don't have headers maybe? Okay, let's look at the data file here. Sentiment review. Do we need to do anything else here? Exactly, Alice. I agree. That's definitely the better way of doing it long term. Is to have its own place for it. I think exactly that's the thing, Luis. I think the configuration here is what we're missing, but it seems to be something else happening here. I'm also kind of wondering if we can use the ML context instead to load this data instead. I'm wondering if can we get, maybe Luis, you know that better, is there a way for the ML context to get the number of, like just to get the column itself and all the values? Because I kind of think that's maybe a better way of doing this than getting stuck here with the CSV helper. Alright, let's try it then. Let's skip CSV helper, thank you for your time. So let's try that. Let's do ML context. At least we get to do some machine learning here, so that's good. Huh, I didn't know I had. Where is this coming from? Okay, that is fine. Okay, you have to guide me through, I think, but let's try this real quick here. We'll just do that. We'll load our data, so we'll use the context to do that. ML context, data, load from file, text file. We'll use the same one now as we had from the other place, because we don't need that. I think I actually copied most of the code from the program here. We don't need to reinvent the wheel here, right? So what we want is this one here. Make your life a little bit easier for us. Perfect. So you're saying that I can probably get column, right? And this is type here. That should be int, I think. Oh, it's a boolean. Interesting. Yeah, so the seed doesn't really matter, Daniel, I think, because seed is only like, we're not going to split the data, so there's no test and train split. So we don't really care about that too much. We can put a seed though, but usually the seed is kind of used to get deterministic randomness, which we need for like splitting the data. But we'll do that. So the interesting thing here, right, is that our data, I think actually this is probably a better test here. Yeah, thanks, Luis. So I'm wondering here though, like, given that this is a boolean, will it throw up if it's has a value that is not a boolean value? I'm kind of curious, and I kind of want to test this. So let's just do this right now. because let's go ahead and do what you were suggesting as well, please, just because I think that's maybe worth it, but something probably will work just fine without it. Okay, interesting. Get column. Let's do float. And we call this sentiment. To list. Group by. Well, I guess we're gonna do that. Yeah, exactly, and that's the thing, Luis, right? The data type is Boolean. Yeah. So the Boolean here is only going to be like 1 or 0. So I think this is going to blow up if it's the wrong value, which is good. So since we can't really have anything else than that, so I think what I want to do here is kind of bear with me for 2 seconds here, and I want to try something real quick here. So if it goes all the way here, we can expect it to pass, right? This is ugly, I know, but bear with me just a moment here. So if this passes here, it should work, but what if our data doesn't work? Let's see that real quick here. Because what we can do here is we can add another data file, and then we can modify that to have more than just 0 and 1 in it, and we can run it and see if it passes. Okay. A sentiment is missing. Oh, well, this is definitely not what I want to do. Yeah, I was using the wrong model, I think, Luis. I was looking at the one I created for the test, but we'll go ahead and look at the one that's actually used for training now instead. That should do it. Okay, so now it passes, which is good because it doesn't break here. But what I want to do here is copy this one here. I'll go ahead and rename it with bad data. Okay, and what I wanted to do is copy this test here, and I want to say given invalid data should I guess should throw exception, right? So we can see here that we do that one, and then bad data. So I think this is a smart way of doing this in n unit, like expected exception, I think. Let's see if we can find that real quick here. Actually, let's just catch this exception if it happens and see what happens here. So I'll just surround this with a try catch. My Visual Studio is dying. Come on, you can do it. I have some kind of issue here. Let me restart Studio. Does it make sense, or am I going on the wrong limb here? I'm trying to achieve here is, like, I think my theory is that if the data is wrong, because the column is a Boolean, I expect it to blow up, and I want to test to check that to make sure that's the case. Which will be very helpful because then we can actually get the descriptive error before we start training the model. Okay. So what we do is n units exception, right? Okay, so I'll do that a bit later, but first I will do a try catch here, just so we know what's happening. Actually, we don't even need to do that. Let's just run it. Run this test somewhere. Got 2 tests, perfect. That's not been run yet. Let's do that. Awesome. So there's definitely a lot of unknown territory here, which is good. On like how to best structure this test and what we want to check for and what's necessary. And I'm also curious like how we want to kind of address different the data files here in the best way. So that's good. So we see that this passed, which is not what I wanted. That's interesting, right? That means that we haven't changed the data. That's what it means. Great. Let me open that file up. So what I wanted to do here, you see we have 1s here and 0s. What I wanted to do here is do like -1 or 5, then save it. So now we have bad data. The cardinality doesn't make any sense now. So now I expect this to throw exceptions, and if not, we should open a GitHub PR for the library. Because I would like it to throw an exception right here. That would be helpful. By the way, the PR we opened like a week ago for the inner exception was merged and approved yesterday. So awesome job, guys. Thank you for contributing to that. Okay, let's run these. Wow, they're passing. That is not what I'm expecting. So now we should definitely do what you suggested, Luis, because now I'm curious here. I want to get see if we can get the cardinality here, because I would expect this to have blown up, but I guess I know what's happening. Okay, it's actually not loading the data here, right? This is just lazy loaded, so it doesn't know what's happening here. Yeah, exactly. Yep. Okay, that is the issue, right? So how can we? Is there a way to load the data without calling fit? Because I don't necessarily want to do that. I think we can use like a text loader instead here. Preview, okay. Good tip, Daniel. Good, very good tip. Let's see if that works. That's a great idea. Let's do this one. Well, this is great. We're learning so much about creating data tests in MLOps here and limitations we have with that. Love it. All right, it's gonna blow up. Yes. Yes. Look at that, beautiful. Format exception, because the format is wrong. Cool. So now we can do what we expect here. So if our case here, we expect the expected exception. What was it called? Expected exception. And units. Maybe that's the old one that was expected here. Yeah, 2.0. We don't want that. That's NU2. Alright, here we go. Perfect. Alright, let's create a delegate for this, and then we will assert that later. I think I've seen that somewhere else. So Luis, you don't think it's appropriate though for this, just to kind of trigger the thing happening? I feel like for these purposes here, right, we're just trying to get the data to be loaded, but that may be still wrong. Okay. So we'll get a deferred execution here. And did I miss something here? Is it? Don't think that's it. Does it need to be specific, I think? I think, okay. It needs to be a specific one here. So it needs to be... We can't assign an action, I think, to a var like that. Okay. Data delegates. Okay. So let's see if this one passes here. I would love to hear more about your thoughts, Luis, on the... Okay, this is slow. In a multi-GB file where the errors are far down. Yeah, it's a good question for sure. So what do you think is a good suggestion instead of using preview to catch those data errors? Like, I think like calling fit is not a great idea. All right, that looks to work at least. And let's do preview here. I will use it for now at least, because I think that's going to at least do what we wanted to do. So in general here, what I think we can do now is commit this. So at least we have two tests, right? And we will run, this one is just kind of just checking the data. But if we copy over the real data file and run them in GitHub Actions, we at least want this to pass. And if the data for sentiment column is out of whack, we at least know that it's going to throw an exception and that test is going to fail. So it's at least something, right? So let's see if we can do that. I'm going to clean this up a little bit first, real quick here, by removing the package that we don't need. So remove that one. And we're going to remove it also from the trainer here because we don't need that. And save everything and then look at what we need to commit here. So we have a lot of files. We don't need all of them. All of these can be skipped. Ignore. All these bin ones can be skipped. And so the tests, what we actually care about, that's fine. We don't need the debug ones. We don't need the cache. I don't think we need these neither. And we definitely don't need these. So we're going to commit, what I'm going to do is I'm going to commit the bad data because we do want to be able to run those tests. But I'm not going to commit product reviews here because I do want to. I do want I want to be forced to copy this over to make sure that copy works, and so we'll skip that for now. And apart from that, I think we're good. Yeah. I think right now, Luis, what we're trying to do is just making sure we have some kind of test before. So, yeah, I think we probably want to add more. Yeah, I think we probably wanted to add more data tests than just the sentiment test eventually, to check like other things as well. If we had more complex data, so we should definitely think about what we can use instead of preview then. But for these kind of scenarios, at least, we want to add those tests before we run a training model. So we kind of know that something's failing and why it's failing. So for example, if we look at the code right now here, we should have the data tests here. So that's an awesome comment, Luis. We should definitely think about it a little bit on how we want to do it in a real scenario, because although we're trying to do it real right now, we're still, you know, hovering on like whatever works for us. So we should think about a better way of doing this. But what we want to do right now here is to run these tests, and we want to do that before we train the model, right? Because that will give us a lot of insight on if we're going to run it or not here. So I think what we want to do here is add data tests runs on Ubuntu. That's good, right? And we are going to, what I want to do here is probably use the checkout as well. For our scenario here, we can either use a copy here to copy that over, or what we can do is we can specify in a test to look at specific folder for the trainer instead. Maybe that's just better for now actually to do that. I think I'm going to commit a change for that. I'm going to remove that one. I'm going to see if we can just specify that. So when we run it in GitHub, it's just going to work for now. And we'll figure out a better solution for that. I guess that depends where it is. It will be 1, 2, 3, 4 ways up, right? And then into here. So what I was going to say is that I think it will be here. We'll escape some of those things, and then 1, 2, 3, 4 ways up here. Let's run this test to make sure we find this one. And like that, we don't need to copy it over right now and GitHub Actions at least, but it's going to read whatever the trainer is reading. And we can just check out the latest instead. Okay. So it's the wrong place. Okay, that's because it's used here, but that should work. So we seem to have found it at least. Let's just debug it one more time. Commit this change. Cool. Alright, so that looks good. So let's commit that. Use trainer data file for data tests. Push that. Alright, so now we can go ahead and add this. So what we want to do here as well is kind of similar things here. We probably need to set up the same thing here. Steps as well, of course, steps. So we'll do what we'll do is we'll check out the repo as we had done before, and we will, I guess, use this as well to make sure we got all that working properly. And what we want to do here is, can we just if you run this from the console, do we need to build it before? Can't remember. So let's check that real quick here. If I go into this folder and run that test, is that going to work? Let's see, cd. Let's Google it. Tests. Yeah, exactly. Luis, I think that's exactly spot on. I think eventually we want to store it in a blob storage or file share and just pass it in as a parameter. And we probably will get there as later in these streams. But for now, I just kind of want the skeleton to work. So running .NET test here, we should be able to do just a project here. So if we do that and look at something similar here, we should be able to do name, run data test, and we need to do this, and it will run .NET test. And let's see, what's the path here that we usually do here? Don't think we have a, we want to use this path. So the path would be data tests, and I think, yep, the solution is called, or the project is called the same thing. So we'll do that, CS proj. Okay. So that should hopefully run the data test for us and give us an output on that beforehand, right? Yeah. Yeah, I'm getting better at this for sure. I am really starting to like it, honestly. Which is, I didn't think I would say I would like this, but I do. Good thing. So we still need to fix this right now. So we need to not train a model before we have our data tests working. And eventually we can add more of these tests and make them more advanced, but at least we get the piping working here. So what do you think? Do you think this looks good? Should we commit this and see if the tests are running? It'd be pretty cool, I think, if this works. Barring any objections, going once, twice. Do it! Alright, Luis, we're doing it just for you. Alright. So this one we can probably stop because this is just our local commits. We don't need that. Let's see. Starting workflow. Nice stuff. Well, for anyone on the stream today that is not following me, if you like what you're seeing, follow me. If you don't, I completely understand. I'm rambling today, and that's okay. But I'm enjoying hanging out with you guys and learning about this today. I wanted to do like data tests and stuff a long time ago, but just haven't had a chance to do it. So this is an awesome experience to see. And it ran half of it, I feel like. I feel like something is wrong in our YAML. Steps, users, checkout, setup. Okay, that looks good to me, but why is it not? Is it checking out still? Or are we missing something here? Let's see. I feel like something is missing here. Run data test. .NET test run. Maybe it's just taking a while. Oh, here we go. Refresh. Okay. So something didn't work, but it's at least trying to do it. That's good. So what was not working here? So it's trying to run a test. That's good. Could not open file. Cannot find file. Okay. So it couldn't find this file right here because it can't apparently go up a couple of levels here. So that sucks. Okay. So I guess what we could do is just do a link instead. So instead of doing that there, what we could do is just link this file to this data instead, and it will copy it over automatically, right? That'd be another way of doing this. Let's try that real quick here. Add existing item, and we'll go ahead and add trainer, all files, and instead of doing add, we'll do add as a link here, and we will make sure this is always copied. And like that, I think we're still gonna get the same thing we want to achieve here. I'll run this locally again just to make sure it works, and it'll push it. Let's see. Okay, so that looks good. So let's push that, and hopefully it starts a new one. Added data as link instead. So we'll see if that works. I'm wondering if it will. I think like what's going to happen is that when you run .NET test, I think it's building it as well, and then running test. But I'm not super sure. So we may need to like build the test first to get that into the bin folder. But you know, we'll try and see, right? Hopefully it'll work. Hopefully we got our commits in here. I think we're getting our commits in here. Okay, it's running data test. It's doing something. That's good. All right, come on. Yes, look at that. It found the file as a link and it passed. Fantastic. So we have our first data test here in our pipeline, and if they pass, it's going to continue to train the model. And if it doesn't pass, we will get a nice exception on why, hopefully, why it failed and what's wrong with it, which test is failing. So that will give us a really good insight into certain things here, and we should definitely look at improving these tests, adding more tests. Because what we want to do right now as well, and not today but next stream, is after train model, we want to add our model tests here. So we want to look at things like accuracy and score, and make sure we have a baseline. And we probably also want to look at fairness, if there's some way we can do test against that and improve this. So that's pretty cool, I think, though. I think it's a nice thing. Awesome. Well, unfortunately, I have to sign off for this stream today to get back to the real world. But this has been really, really fun, guys. I really enjoyed it so far, and I've learned some fun things with you guys. We managed to deploy the container to an Azure container instance. We managed to create our first data test. We managed to pipe it all through in GitHub Actions. I would say it's been pretty successful 1.5 hours so far. I've learned a lot. I hope you have also learned something. Maybe you already knew all these things, and that's perfect too. But as always, you can find me on Twitter if you want to just chat about something. I'll be streaming on Saturday again. And on that topic, definitely submit to the conference if you haven't already. And if you haven't signed up, please sign up. It's going to be awesome. We are closing into like 300 people that signed up almost. So that's really awesome. And I know the speaker submissions. I know they're awesome. And you will be very happy, I think. So stay tuned for that. All right, everyone. Have a fantastic Tuesday, and I'll see you next time. Bye, guys.